2,200 miles of ocean, 10 days at sea, and a camera. Those are the ingredients that set sail in the critically acclaimed new documentary, Rock the Boat.
I was talking to a friend of mine about going sailing, and this big guy from the back jumped into the conversation and said, "Sailing? Did somebody say sailing?"
In the summer of 1997, Houston, Hudson, and a crew of 9 men living with HIV and AIDS set sail on the Survivor in the Transpac race.
This is it. We're out of here. This boat's leaving now.
Transpac's probably the oldest race in California. It dates back to 1906. It races every 2 years from Los Angeles to Hawaii.
Wanted HIV positive crew. That ought to grab them.
Putting together this team was overwhelming to me because I had to not only go in a matter of 6 months and get a trained, seasoned Transpac yacht team, I had to get all HIV positive sailors.
Saturday, July 5th, so that's this morning. The pharmaceuticals are everywhere evident. Pill time happens all the time.
I think about 3 weeks before we left, we finally let the Transpac Yacht Club know that this team is all HIV positive. We thought for sure they'd throw us out, but they didn't.
The race is one part of Robert Hudson's nonprofit organization called Get Challenged. It's dedicated to redefining the self-esteem of people living with HIV and AIDS.
Nobody tries to hit home, this is what you should do being HIV positive, this is what you shouldn't do. This just shows the guys being guys, going for their dreams, racing across the Pacific. So it gives a great image for the 21st century for people with AIDS. And that was my original goal, and that's why I did the whole thing.
I knew that there was a story. I had no idea what the story would be.
And there's not a team on this boat.
There is a team on this boat. Don't say that. There's a very powerful team.
An athletic competition has a starting gun and a finish line. And in between, something happens.
We have a hurricane.
Dolores, not a hurricane yet.
People wanted to be in this race. They wanted to sail. I believe this race was keeping people alive. It was like, you gotta wanna live to live.
People are recommending him. He can't sail. He's never been on the ocean. I don't even know if he can swim.
Who knows? Maybe he'll pull somebody out of the drink, you know?
There was nobody on the boat that actually was qualified. There's a rule in the Transpac that you must have one Transpac veteran in your crew. But because of the project, that rule was waived.
We couldn't have cast a better film. We've got the dishy cook, the crazy captain, the comedic helmsman.
Everyone's just going to be so close, and it's going to be such a rewarding experience.
The thrill for me was how much people let down their guards and how much they showed inside. When you get that on film, it's really unique.
You should lighten up on your backstage pressure, too. Our master's ass.
I think you should lighten up.
You know, I read that book, The Old Man and the Sea, and he had a big hat.
Sleep deprivation was probably the most difficult negative we were working with.
Sleep becomes the biggest luxury.
I think I slept for the first time last night about 2.5 hours over here. When I woke up, I was completely disoriented. And
People get dingy, and they get emotional.
Dingy, they get angry, testy.
You guys have so much resentment, there's resentment everywhere. And you both know that.
It's just natural. You put 11 guys on a boat, you're going to come.
No, we're talking me and you. That's not natural.
Well, John and I have been through a lot in the last 6, 7 months. You know, we work to get along with each other. There's things John doesn't like about me, there's things I don't like about John. But I mean, we're not going to wrestle on the deck.
There's a moment where the crew comes to John and basically says, "What's up? Are we going to make it or not?" And John said, "Look, you know, if we break the mast, we end up in life rafts. No big deal."
The crew kind of
I'm
went,
behind the camera going, you know, it's a big deal. Life rafts is a big deal. You know, we're 1,000 miles from land.
The anxiety Bob had was he kept having this reoccurring nightmare that the boat would be sinking and everybody would be climbing into a life raft and his film would be floating away in different directions and he couldn't get it all together.
Fortunately, that never happened. Rock the Boat has been a big hit at film festivals across the country, and the New York Times called it moving and says it leaves you cheering.
For the first time in my life, I made a film that was about being gay, about being out, and what that looks like for me. And it has changed my life entirely.
Rock the Boat is now in theaters across the country and makes its television debut on HBO this summer. This is Jonathan Capehart for In the Life.
Joining the cast of Rent was an incredible experience. In Rent, there are many messages, but one that's really emphasized over and over again is that you have to love and live every moment in the fullest way you can, because it's not promised to you for the next day or the next minute. I play Tom Collins in the Broadway musical Rent, and my character, as well as several others, are learning to live with HIV and AIDS. For more information about AIDS-related issues, a good first stop is the National AIDS Hotline at 1-800-342-AIDS. They can answer your questions, give you the numbers for state hotlines, or direct you to a service organization in your local area. Get the right information. Know the facts. Stay healthy. I'm Michael McElroy for In the Life.
Sometimes to explore another culture, you don't have to venture very far from home. Our final segment takes us inside the world of gay men and lesbians who are deaf. People who share a language and experience unfamiliar to most of us, yet who see that as a challenge and definitely not a handicap. Deaf lesbians and gay men were a visible part of the 1993 March on Washington, exhibiting pride in their identity and culture. Like gay men and lesbians who belong to other minority groups, deaf men and women live in more than one world, and where they feel most at home may be surprising. Bob Rourke and his partner Ed Aldrich live in Alexandria, Virginia with their dogs. They both work for the federal government, and both are in their 30s. They have one major difference, however. Bob is deaf, and Ed is hearing.
When I first met him, he didn't know how to sign at all. But his roommate's parents were deaf, so he had a TTY, a device that allows the deaf to communicate over the telephone. He talked to his roommate, and his roommate taught him some signs, some finger spelling, and how to use the TTY.
I think the first thing was I saw that he was very patient with people that were trying to communicate. So I figured, I could make an effort, and I didn't have to be perfect. So that's how I started. I learned finger spelling, and at some point when we were dating, I decided I'd take a sign language class.
We started out writing with a pen and paper. Then I wanted him to get involved in deaf culture. There were a lot of things he didn't understand, so I had to explain things like the differences in behavior. For example, tapping the shoulder for attention, or using facial expressions. Sometimes I would respond to what he was saying with a facial expression, and he would interpret it to mean that I was upset, when in fact I wasn't. I just didn't understand what he was saying.
When you're tired, you're not necessarily going to be walking around with a smile on your face. And so if I'm coming around and I'm thinking about something, the drive home from work that really aggravated me, and then I turn and say to Bob something about, is it your turn to make dinner? It comes across much differently than it was intended, because facial expression is the punctuation of sign language.
Bob and Ed have considered adopting a child, but are afraid that the child could one day be taken away from them by the courts. However, their desire to expand their family led them to rescue 2 Dalmatians, deaf Dalmatians, who they've taught to understand sign language.
Being very different, I think we kind of add some kind of balance to a relationship. He has one set of strengths and I have another set of strengths. I think there's a certain amount of tension on the con side. Anytime you have different cultures involved in a relationship, it's amazing what you can do when you think something's worth it. You have to have the desire to make something work.
Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. is the only undergraduate university in the world for the deaf and hard of hearing. It was here that Candace McCullough and Sharon Ducheneaux met. Candace is now back at Gallaudet working on her doctorate in clinical psychology, and Sharon works as a mental health counselor. The two live in Bethesda, Maryland, and are the mothers of a 2.5-year-old girl.
We discussed it, and we really wanted to have our own child. We discussed who the donor should be. We wanted our child to know the donor. We wanted the donor to allow our child to meet him if she wanted to. We didn't want to keep this a secret from her. We also wanted to know the donor's medical history.
Sharon and Candace were looking for a donor that would enable their child to share their unique culture.
It was important to us that the donor be a hereditary deaf person, since we would have a better chance of having a deaf child. This doesn't mean we wouldn't have wanted our child if she'd been born hearing. We would have loved her just the same. So we asked him, and he agreed, and we worked out all the details. Everything went as planned. The day our daughter was born, we felt that she was deaf. We tested her hearing by turning up the TV to a loud roar, and she remained sound asleep. She was tested at 6 weeks, and it was confirmed that she was deaf. We were thrilled.
Having John has brought us more out into the open about our relationship, our family. We don't want to keep this hidden. We don't want her to grow up embarrassed or ashamed about her family. It's our responsibility to let people know who we are and that we're proud of our family. This started with letting people at school know. We're lucky that all the parents were supportive and accepting of us. One of the teachers even wrote a supporting letter for us when one of us went through the adoption process. That was very nice, and we feel very accepted by the school and by the other parents.
It was important for Candace and Sharon that their daughter was born at home, surrounded by a support system of other women. Women like Jan DeLapp, Jean's godmother, who lives with them and takes care of Jean while her mothers are at work.
Some people ask me what I'll do if kids tease her about having lesbian moms. I know that may happen because kids can be cruel at times, and they tease other kids about many things, like wearing glasses or having divorced parents. So I'm not worried about the teasing. I expect it will happen. But our job is to teach her how to deal with it in the right way. I think Jean will develop a gift of sensitivity to others because of being different. She'll be a good person, I hope.
Sometimes I wish my partner was deaf, so he wouldn't get up complaining about the dogs barking all night long.
I tend to be living kind of in both worlds. But I don't always experience the two issues simultaneously. It's either one or the other.
If there was a party of straight people and they were deaf, and a party of gay people but they were hearing and didn't know sign language, I would prefer the straight party. That's because I'd be able to communicate with people. At the other party, although the people were gay, I'd feel frustrated trying to communicate with the hearing people. It's because I identify first and foremost as a deaf person.
I grew up in a hearing world, struggling and feeling frustrated, trying to be a hearing person until about 7 or 8 years ago. I don't want John to go through that struggle over speech and feel incompetent. My whole childhood, I wondered what was wrong with me, why I was different. I didn't know until I entered the deaf world. Finally, I understood. It was all about communication. I was finally able to relate to others on the same level. That's what I'd been missing.
I want to say something about self-esteem. If you're told it's bad to be deaf, it's awful and very deflating to be constantly told you must be like hearing people. It's the same with gays and lesbians. If you're constantly told you must be straight and you struggle to be straight, deep down inside you don't feel good about who you really are.
That's it for this episode of In the Life. If you'd like more information about any of the organizations you've seen on tonight's program, then please call us at 1-800-627-ON-TV or visit our website at inthelifetv.org. From all of us at In the Life, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
In the Life is a member-supported, not-for-profit educational corporation. To learn more about In the Life or to order a home video of this episode, call 1-800-627-ON-TV or visit our website at inthelifetv.org.
baby. Rock the boat. I don't tip the boat over. Rock the boat. I don't rock the boat. It's mother.
To discuss what you have seen tonight online, visit our website and the new In the Life forum. Tell us and other viewers your thoughts at www.inthelifetv.org. In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Ameringen Foundation. Additional support provided by Peter Goldfarb, in memory of Helen Goldfarb, Michael A. Lepin, Rick Weiland, the Lily Auchincloss Foundation, the Gill Foundation, Richard M. and Peggy Danziger, the Michael Palm Foundation, the Mitchell Gold Company, in the hopes of eliminating all types of fear and prejudice, and In the Life members like you.